And welcome back to another round of Arbitration Studios as we continue our journey across the whole damn thing of Mass Effect. I am JB Arbiter.
I'm Captain Jack.
I took way too long to remember my name.
It
And
happens.
and speaking of people who remember stuff well, or not so well, really well in this case, we are on our way to recruit our first companion for Mass Effect 2, Dr. Mordin Solus, who, in an eerie bit of timing, given how long it took us to get around to Mass Effect 2, we're dealing with a plague.
Well, this is, of course, this is your, if you got the DLC, this is your second companion. Since
Oh, yeah, Zaid.
You pick up Zaid. And when I originally played through this, I did not have the DLC, so, not the Zaid DLC, I have some of the others. And so Mordin was, in fact, my first, and is my first love of a companion for, not in the sense of
I was about to say,
love.
I thought Rex was your
No,
first
that
love.
Rex will always be my first and only love. Rex has such a good place in my heart. But as far as companions go, Mordin's the one that I like as a person, like as a being, the most. Also, I find that in Mass Effect 2, he's, for quite a while, probably one of the best bets at having as a companion.
Oh, he's so versatile in terms of what he can and cannot do, thanks to that. Thanks to his fire and ice abilities, which we'll get a full view of in a later mission. But in the meantime, we've got Plague Zone stuff. That's always fun. We are looking to and unlike COVID, this one is actually manufactured. So,
Yeah, it's it takes and just an aside, but it takes a sci-fi universe to make that an effective thing due to a lot of things.
due to how viruses actually work.
Yeah, yeah. But right now we have what I consider the greater virus within the Mass Effect universe.
Batarians.
Batarians.
They do have just punchable faces, don't they?
They do. I like to shoot them straight between their four eyes.
Just like right at the X pattern.
Exactly. And it's cultural, really. It's not because they're hideous, four-eyed, no-nosed beasts. No. It's because of their culture of
Slavery is
slavery.
good.
Yeah.
And a complete not getting why other species find slavery abhorrent, but then again, they also look down on other species because, hey, you don't have four eyes.
So, yeah, it is. So now we're dealing with moving through
And then they wonder why the galaxy is basically the United States. Oh, fuck those guys.
Right? And now we have a lot of... and there's a lot less in this particular game, in Mass Effect 2 than there was in 1, of just wandering around picking up stuff.
Well, it's wandering around, and keen-eyed people notice that I edit through the puzzling on this, just because that's just like 30 seconds of me being a dumbass people don't need to see, especially when I fail.
Well, yeah. And as far as mini games go, this one was not bad. This was, if I remember correctly, the first time I played this, I was also at that time playing a little bit of Arkham, the Arkham games with Batman, which great mechanic and whatnot, but I didn't like the story as much as I like Mass Effect story.
Well, the first Arkham Asylum game was great because it was so confined. You were in the asylum and it was tight. It wasn't free roam.
Right.
It wasn't linear either to a certain extent, but it was very it had that Metroid feel to things.
And that is honestly, I think why Mass Effect 2 holds up as well as it does is because it is a very, very tight story. It is a very there's not a lot of running all over the place, and there's not a lot of driving around and scaling mountains in heavy wheeled vehicles. Which, by the way, I say that, and it might sound like a complaint about Mass Effect 1, and it is not. That is actually one of my favorite parts of Mass Effect 1.
Just tooling around in your it's not a Bradley, it's more like a Striker, isn't it?
It's, I like to see what I can climb with it. And honestly, Mass Effect 4 really pleased me with the return of that mechanic. I mean, obviously you don't have the big guns on it, but you do get to see if you can climb.
I really wish it did. That was... Could you imagine just how much fans would have forgiven on Andromeda, which was a perfectly serviceable game. It just didn't... Yeah, it's the same problem that we have right now with superhero movies, is that we fans want to expect things to always get bigger and bigger and to eclipse the last. But the thing is that in superhero movies, the wad was blown with Endgame.
Yeah.
You know, we need to reset, we need to have a cigarette, and we need to have to have a kind of a psychological starting over, and fans don't want to do that.
Well, and I think, tying it into Mass Effect, I think the first three, if you view the first three as one continual story, one continual game, and then you look at Andromeda, and we'll talk about that later with Andromeda, but my point with that is that this is so good. One was good. I think this is another world entirely of good. And then three, I think the story and the game mechanic really got finalized and really got nailed down very well. And I think that the overall, when you're looking at this as a whole story, this is fantastic. And I think that Andromeda just didn't get that chance. Because if you looked at Mass Effect 1 and you just judged all of Mass Effect on Mass Effect 1 and you never played this,
overlong, tons of busy work.
I mean, once you get to see this is incredible. Now, this particular fight right here always gives me heartburn. Really, it does. It's just the I'm not a really good shot, even in real life, and this particular one.
Well, and powers don't home in as well as they do in 3.
Right, exactly.
To say nothing of how terrible they are in 2.
Right.
Or 1, I mean. But it's good that this is like the recommended start level to one point, because while it is heartburn inducing right there, we're introduced to multiple types of health bars, each with their own quirks, vulnerabilities, and strengths. And the armor in that case, armor piercing ammunition, fire kills everything, but it really kills armor
in real life too. If you get enough fire, it will die.
So give a man a fire, he'll be warm in 45 minutes. Set a man on fire, he'll be warm for the rest of his life.
Indeed.
And it's one of those things where the concept was good, but the execution on this was really difficult for a lot of classes.
Yeah.
Because particularly early on, where armor is prevalent, and then when a lot of the non-soldier classes are more oriented towards let's go fly a kite. Anyway, what was I saying? Players or different classes aren't geared towards dealing with armor in the early game, and armor is the first thing that you're introduced to. And a lot of the non-soldier and to a certain extent non-Vanguard, I guess, classes deal with deal better with the shield and the barrier health types.
I do really think that the game was like soldier is the easy mode. Like if you play soldier, it's definitely a lot easier. Well, I shouldn't say easier necessarily. It's a lot less complicated.
Direct.
Yeah,
It's a lot more direct.
It's a lot more direct. And here we go. We're going deeper. And here we are. We have reached the hospital. The hospital, as one would say. Where we can switch out our weapons, which in 2, that mechanism just really isn't. There's.
Well, they wanted the traditional RPG class type where the class was more important and the equipment could just be periodically upgraded.
Yeah.
They wanted to make the guns more individual and interesting, rather than just how far up the gauge they go.
Yeah, no, I'm not. It's a different way of doing it, and
here he is.
Oh, yes.
The man, the myth, the legend.
Yes, the
Yapper Dapper, or the Dapper Yapper.
Oh my god.
The classiest son of a bitch, the only person who fucked with Omega and didn't die.
Didn't die, that's right. Well, I mean, she's really just gonna, she really just looked at him and said, nah, I'll just let him die of old age. Because, I mean, keeping in mind that Solarians do...
I had to fight really hard to, or I was fighting really hard, I should say, to try and let that go, to let him keep talking, and I failed in the end. For the love of God, shut up!
Yeah, that's, I mean, I've never shut him up personally because I like hearing him talk.
Yeah.
Because I am a man of quality and class. But I can understand playing in character. Fisty is a very, she got things to do.
Do it.
She's got Reapers to fist. Morden, I think if you go through the internet and you look at all the lists of favorite companions, I think that Morden is pretty high up there. Not necessarily as a companion that you take with you to go on adventures and kill and maim and do horrible things to your opponents. No.
Morden is definitely not a gameplay companion.
No, I think that people just like Morden.
Well, I remember shortly after Mass Effect 3 came out and BioWare was doing the con circuit and the interviews and whatnot, and when there was a fan Q&A, someone said, "How could you do what you did to Morden?" And everyone laughed, and there was a justification of, not everyone gets to make it out the other side.
And of course we'll talk to that when we go through 3. But I think that, and of course at this point I'm pretty sure everybody knows where that can go if you do things a certain way, which is the way that most people, I think the majority of people go.
For the most part, yeah.
One of the things that they do with modern games and on Steam, I really like is they give you the percentage of people who are playing the game who make the same decisions that you make. I would be interested to see that about this game in particular. Now, one of the things I do love about modern games, especially, and this one in particular, is the way that you can utilize the environment to hurt your opponents.
That goes back to Doom, with the radioactive barrels.
Like shooting the guys who are wearing a flame thrower and then watching them burn and scream. The Vorcha scream is surprisingly human-like.
There's a certain pain threshold where all you can do is just let out as high a note as you can manage.
Indeed. So here we have...
I mean, you're not going to hear Hanar scream.
Right. So here...
They don't have vocal cords.
Indeed. Here is one of the things... I think I heard people complain about this, but on Mass Effect 2, but I actually kind of liked it, was that pretty much everything is a set piece.
Mm-hmm.
You're not wandering around aimlessly. You're like, all of that aimless wandering is done automatically for you, and you just go right to the environment that you're going to be shooting in.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of dug that. I kind of felt like it streamlined things, and it really made it
The fact
a lot.
the fact in one is that all of the empty planets that you could land on didn't have enough interest to it, and that's something that Bethesda has learned recently with Starfield, is that, you know, yeah, you can make the majority of planets that basically you can land on any planet that's not a gas giant, if I recall right, but you can't make
Here we have a great fisting.
You can't make every planet interesting, and some places are just big ol' hunks of nothing.
And that's,
So-
and that's realistic, really. But
I mean, really, as far as the universe is concerned, most of it is going to be devoid of anything that is interesting beyond the base industrial level.
right.
You know, sure, this planet is good for nothing more than grinding it down into gravel so we can make concrete.
Yeah, no, and that's totally understandable, and I get that, and I like that change in Mass Effect 2, and then that they took that change over to Mass Effect 3. Although I think that
In Mass Effect 3, though, that's justified in it's a time. We are now in and not just a time of war. Oh, I forgot that little glitch. If you noticed, I was pointing the same way, regardless of camera direction.
Yeah. There's I feel like, and there's no amount. There's no end to the amount of memes that are made about Mass Effect glitches, which they've never bothered me. I've never
I know you're
really been
scared of
bothered
the
by
vortex.
it.
The only ones that bother me are the
This
glitches
man
that
isn't
actually
to blame.
do
If he was
damage
spreading the virus,
gameplay.
why would he come into vortex?
Case in point, and I was playing a mission in MechWarrior 5 recently, and it's one of those things where
Have my word on
you
it.
should destroy the communication towers so that way signals don't get out when they detect you. And I did so, and I was doing so with a class of weapon that is known for having low damage for the most part, but extremely long range.
Thank you.
So that way
I
they
thought
don't
they
even
would-
detect me, and then I shoot them down, shoot down these communication towers, and then I move on.
The professor
Well,
could use your
yeah,
help right now.
I
He's got
didn't
too many
realize
patients
that
and not enough volunteers.
if you
Yeah,
play the mission that way,
I'll
that
go right away.
you don't
Thanks again.
trigger the necessary
I owe you.
the necessary steps in the
Everything.
programming for the mission to progress normally, which means that you don't encounter the big fight at the end. And
Right.
so I was wandering around like, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? And then finally I just swapped to a different mech that didn't have those weapons. And here I am panicking with only 30 seconds to level those towers, and doing so, and come to find out that was exactly the problem. Was that here I am plinking these things from a kilometer away, and and they're never the wiser. But when I'm right up in their face at half that distance, then it's like, oh yeah, hey, fine, everything's working fine. So yeah, that's a game-breaking bug. There should have been a
They shouldn't have let you. They shouldn't. What they shouldn't have done is let you snipe.
Or
You should have that trigger should have happened at any point that you destroyed it.
or they should have programmed an if-or state that was dependent on the building standing or not. If the building is standing or not, bypass the are you detected.
But overall,
trigger.
I think that Mass Effect and really in general, BioWare games are quite stable. I mean, they have some silly things that go on, but play-wise, they tend to be fairly stable. I know that at least, but then again, like I said, I came a little late to the Mass Effect, and I never played Mass Effect on PC. I always played on the Xbox, and
Glory to the console peasants.
Consoles, say what you want, but consoles typically are very stable. As far as platforms go.
Unless it's a Bethesda game.
Yeah, well, okay.
Then nothing's stable.
Well, but they work hard. They do. They work hard, and they're very well loved. And much like Mass Effect, and much like BioWare is very well loved by the people who love it. And then the people that don't love it, I've heard a lot of complaints about Mass Effect 3 gamers. And then I ask them what kind of games they play, and they say Cookie Run Kingdom. And then I go, not to really not trying to offend anybody on that, but it's just if that's not your type of game, you're not gonna like it.
Yeah. Here's the thing about Bethesda, just to get this bugbear out of my mind now that I'm thinking about it. They spent a decade, and I'm going to trace very close to the line of someone who expresses there should be no new IPs because you need to service your existing ones.
Yeah.
So they spent close to a decade not developing the Elder Scrolls game and making a cash grab MMO out of Fallout with Fallout 76, and then and diverting all the resources that went into not serving Fallout 76 to make this new IP in Starfield. And Starfield, as it turns out, was a wet fart in the rain. Players loved it and it was the next greatest thing and blah blah, and then 2 weeks later everyone's forgotten about it until the Game Awards came out, and I have my own opinions on those.
I would like to say in Starfield and Bethesda's defense that they were going up against Baldur's Gate 3, which
Baldur's Gate 3 is its own bag of worms, where it's is it a good game? Yes. Is it a great game? It's a good game.
It's and it is a great game in comparison to the games that being a full complete game at launch, with no need for any kind of DLC or anything to make the game complete. That made it a bit different. That's a bit different.
I can't deny that.
And again, to bring that back to Mass Effect, these games were, they needed some, patching and stuff. Every game does, but they were beginning, middle, end. You could play it from the beginning, middle, to the end. You did not need, none of the DLC is necessary. Although it does, a lot of the DLC does add to the game in a way that I appreciate. Either with extra missions or extra characters or something along those lines.
That's the thing with Baldur's Gate 3, is that I wish that they would look at making DLC packs that are nothing more than just a post-game congratulations, you fucked the squid.
Yeah. Well, that's and the funny thing about that is that they absolutely have done that. The thing is that they're not doing it as DLC.
Well, I'm saying that that is a circumstance in which DLC is acceptable, and yet Larian is treating it like they're like it's a great big oh no, we're going back to tradition. And here's the thing, Brood War. StarCraft Brood War. Expansions have been around. They're not a new thing.
And that's where expansions as DLC, I think, are, for instance, going back to Mass Effect 2 here, Katsumi and
Zaid.
Zaid, thank you.
He's out here fighting and dying for us repeatedly.
Zaid, I know, and I can't remember his name. Zaid.
Speaking of which, he just died.
Those two, I really wish that had been Jacob. But anyways,
I don't play Jacob unless I have to.
Yeah, it's fair. I really wish it was Caden Alenko, but we already left him in Weimar. But I think that the expansion DLC that was put out for Mass Effect, and I feel like really added to the game. It really adds to the play, and you don't have to get them. They're nice expansions. There is where you take the rocket to the face. This is a standard thing that
Fist.
happens. There's the fisting.
Oh shit. We do not want to be that close to a flamethrower.
And that is that was a hot situation. But I feel like sometimes some companies do it well. BioWare, I think, does the expansion very well. I think they have always done expansions very well.
I don't know. It's just like how cool would it be if in a post like the campaign is done, someone walked up and said, "Let's do the Tomb of Horrors."
Nah, I mean,
Is the Tomb of Horrors technically a Forgotten Realms?
Tomb of Horrors is really wherever you want to put it. I
Okay.
mean, now this is you know, as a DM, as somebody who's played for, I think that Tomb of Horrors originally was in Greyhawk.
Well, Tomb of Horrors was
getting,
originally Gary Gygax being
getting-
sick of player shit.
putting on my old hat. Mentioning Greyhawk, ask your grandparents about that one, folks. Now we have arrived at, we have gained Morden, sweet Morden, who, if I was in that universe and I had children, I would want Morden to be their godfather. I think that Morden would make an amazing godfather, and of course my children would be with Rex.
It does show that we've learned a bit about Morden's character too, in that he won't leave people behind. And when we get to his loyalty mission and the story therein, where we'll do a little bit more in-depth character analysis, there's certainly some shadows in his past that lead to it. But yeah, right now this is all about kicking ass, taking names, and doing fun stuff.
I also like he's one of the aliens that you get who doesn't actually get
Very well informed.
all butthurt about working with
Government
servers.
Well, because he worked in the Shadow Ops world, so he's familiar with stuff and the way things work. So
Anti-alien reputation listed.
blah 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 blah. Just won't stop.
It's Morden. What are you going to do?
I know.
It's why we love him.
And he also gets the one thing that I think a lot of fans don't get is that, situations can change, and they can change very acutely for whatever reason. So, yep, Paragon interrupt. Yeah, just hi. Let's cool down the reactor there, son. We got you set up. We got all the good toys.
And now we can actually play with the good toys because we have Morden.
And he can build them for us.
Simulated emotional inflections. Could it be?
Require Morden in
Maybe.
order to
Have to ask. Is
build
that an
toys.
AI?
He is your toy
The
maker.
ship is equipped with an
And
artificial
that gets sicker and
intelligence.
sicker.
An AI on board.
we talk about
Non-human
it.
crew. Cerberus more desperate than I thought.
The collectors
Chafing.
have taken tens of thousands of colonists. We'll do whatever
At
we
least
have
if we
to do to
romance
find
Garrus.
and stop them.
Yes, of course. Can't
Yeah.
risk being captured like colonists.
Anyway.
Need to identify
So, that's the
neutralize
story of Morden
technology,
Solus,
samples,
ladies and
and
gentlemen.
to the lab.
Come back next time, and we've got a vigilante that we got to recruit.
Indeed.
Deuces.